And now, friends, we're off to the movies on talkSPORT Extra Time. But don't panic, we're not asking you to break lockdown or break into a cinema. No, no, no. The movies, but in the privacy and comfort of your own home. Big screen epics and blockbusters on the small screen in your house. Courtesy of recommendations from me, Paul Ross, on talkSPORT Extra Time, and our mate, Mr. Friday, Van Connor. Good morning, Van, and how's your week been? Are you going gently bonkers at the moment, missing cinema?
I miss the public screening experience like you wouldn't believe. I miss cramped rows of people with no leg room and a massive, shining, brightly lit monolith before us. I really do.
Well, let's start with a bit of comfort for you then. You want to start with a film that's on tonight, 11 o'clock on 5 Star. I think it stars Ryan Reynolds. It's Van Wilder, Party Liaison. Now, I saw this and it was a bit, even by my low standards, a bit OTT. Tell us about this one, because it's a bit of a gross-out comedy, isn't it?
Arguably, it's one of the more successful efforts post-Chevy Chase of the National Lampoon's brand, a sort of, a comedy label of US sort of comedy mythic lore. This starred Ryan Reynolds. This was arguably his first real box office success. Made him a sort of a cult hit, opening up to a wider audience. He'd been a sitcom actor before this, and he's a 7th year senior at college, we're told, which is to say that he's been there 3 years too long. He should have graduated by now.
So right there, you get echoes kind of Animal House, don't you? That kind of thing. People who've kind of outstayed their welcome or are very, very, very mature and drunken and licentious and lecherous students.
Exactly that. And of course, he's rather that sort of, he's the man of the campus kind of a figure. His rich dad cuts him off when he realises exactly what his son's been doing, and he becomes a sort of party organiser, using his popularity and his fame to basically pay his tuition to graduate from college, whilst he's being investigated by a journalist played by, and I swear this is genuinely real, Tara Reid.
Okay, you've got a clip for us, I think, haven't you? Be warned, folks, this is full on. If you're easily offended, I wouldn't watch this film tonight, but it has got its moments, to put it mildly. One involving a bulldog and some cream cakes, but I'll draw a veil over that. What have you got for us? Where are you taking us, Van? I hope somewhere broadcastable.
Well, I thought I could go for something gross out, I could do something funny, and then I thought I'll just find something absolutely hilarious. Here is Tara Reid trying to convincingly play a journalist.
All right. Hey, Gwen, all right. You're just in time. Take your clothes off.
I'm not taking off my clothes.
Well, it is the naked mile run. Everybody else is in their birthday suit. Except that guy.
I have a few questions for you.
In time. This is going to be fun. You know that 3-letter word starts with F?
So you're quite the campus man, heading events like the Jaeger Olympics.
Oh, yes. Well, you haven't lived until you've shot put and blitzed on Jaeger. Heine?
This was a really bad idea. I'm leaving.
Hey, are we going to reschedule or what?
I must say, it took me a while to warm to Ryan Reynolds after this film, because he comes over at times as so smug and obnoxious, but I'll give it another go tonight, and you're right, Tara Reid is a very funny bit of casting on that one, so that's your big recommendation. Once again, it's tonight, it's 5 Star, it's 11 p.m. I'm going 5 Star as well just before that. They're having a bit of a comedy double bill. I'd urge you to set your recorder for a film you've probably not seen for a while. It's released in 1997, a big hit. It is Oh Behave, the fantastic Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. I hadn't realised till I was preparing for our chat, Van, that apparently Mike Myers wanted Jim Carrey to play Dr. Evil. He didn't think of doing the part himself. Jim Carrey was doing Liar Liar, so he took over, and this is a brilliant film, is it not? Liz Hurley's in it as well, Michael York's in it as well. It gave us 2 sequels. There may even be, always talk of a 4th one on the way. This is an absolute cracker, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I when you said you were going with Austin Powers tonight, Paul, my first thought, as you know, was I just know, just for a fact, that Paul owns a suit exactly like Austin Powers, a nice classic 60s Austin Powers-esque suit.
I have been known to have a kind of high-collared purple velvet suit in my time. Sadly, post-lockdown diet and eating, it wouldn't fit me anymore at the moment. But let's have the trailer anyway. It's an absolute belter. 40% of this apparently was improvised on the set. It must have been an absolute run. And I think Mike Myers had 3 or 4 different sets of teeth. If you're a real continuity buff, his teeth change throughout the film. It's an absolute belter. It's tonight. It's 9 o'clock on 5 Star. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
In 1967, an international secret agent was cryogenically frozen in case the world ever required his services again. Now, evil is threatening the Earth, and the time has come to bring him back into the 90s.
Allow myself to introduce myself. Danger Powers Personal Effects.
Actually, my name is Austin Powers. Danger's my middle name.
I'm gonna need you to sign these release forms.
Okay, name. Sex? Yes, please.
In his time, he was the coolest secret agent alive. Unfortunately,
It's freedom, baby, yeah!
this is not his time.
Oh dear, I mean, I'm going to be watching that tonight. It's one of those films you start, and what I interviewed him, I was lucky enough to do a quick interview with him when that was released, and he wasn't really that well known over here. Wayne's World had been out and been huge, but he wasn't.
No.
And then he said to me, I said, it's quite a short film, just for something. He said, yeah, he said, no comedy should be longer than 90 minutes. And I think he's kind of got a point, because after that, it becomes either a comedy drama, or you get the feeling they're kind of stretching out the material. Great film, great soundtrack, and I think you've got another goodie for us. Again, it's a 5-star Friday morning for us. You're recommending another 5-star film for tomorrow night, 25 minutes past 11. It's spooky, it's creepy, it's eerie, it's The Craft. For those who don't know, tell us about this one.
So The Craft is initially a 1996 sort of teen US goth horror movie, played as a sort of teen dramedy in a sense as well, about a new girl at school who becomes the missing component in a coven of aspiring witches. But more than that, it's the linchpin moment for an entire sort of subsect of genre fiction in US TV and movie franchises. This is the thing that gives way to things like Buffy, and then the imitators that come out of Buffy, like Charmed, to a lesser extent, things like Scream, and then that sort of teen horror boom. This is that moment where the sort of spark sets off the big bang, if you will. And it has that cast of quintessential 90s figures like Neve Campbell, like Skeet Ulrich, Fairuza Balk, will go on to become the love interest in The Waterboy, for instance.
And of course, she's the little girl in Return to Oz, isn't she, as a child actor, Fairuza Balk?
She is. She always had that very distinctive Tim Burton look to her. But I've got a clip for you that I think just solidifies in one brilliant motion how much of a cultural moment this movie became. If you listen to the song that's playing in the background and what it became the theme song to.
Brilliant stuff. Abracadabra, it's The Craft.
Sarah, looking for someone? No. Some of these football make the girlfriends come and watch them practice as if it's interesting.
Yeah, like a girlfriend over there. Chris Hooker.
I don't even know him.
Nancy's sorry about what happened in biology. And she's mean to everybody, so don't take it personally.
You're Nancy. She's Nancy. I'm Bonnie, and that's Rochelle.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Yeah, we know who you are.
Do you want to go for coffee?
No, I can't. I gotta get home. My dad's waiting for me.
You can make something up.
You stumped me on that. It was quite low in the mix. I couldn't work out what the song was. Forgive my lack of 90s musical knowledge. What were we listening out for there, Van?
So that is How Soon Is Now by the Smiths, which will, of course, go on in 1997, 1998 to become the theme song to Charmed.
Yep.
The series about a coven of
witches. That was Shannon Doherty and Piper Paraba, wasn't it, from Coyote Ugly? I think they had a drifting third sister. But that was... My daughters loved Charmed when it was on, because it was kind of, you're right, The Craft light, wasn't it?
That's what it was. The Craft was the hardcore movie version, and then Charmed became the sort of softer edge TV, Buffy-fied equivalent, if you will, yeah.
OK, and I've got an absolute classic for you. Earlier on in the evening, 20 minutes to 7, so 6:40 in the old money. It's on Sony Movies Classic. It is From Here to Eternity, the original version, which goes all the way up to 1953. Very controversial at the time, based on the best-selling novel, still a brilliant novel by James Jones. That was only published in 1951. For the time, it was very frank indeed. James Jones, interestingly, went on to write The Thin Red Line, which became that great film with Terrence Malick and George Clooney and et al. So he served in the Pacific, served in the Second World War. This film is quite shocking for people when it was first released, for the kind of sexual frankness, and also for some of the racial slurs in it, because it stars Frank Sinatra, and it was pretty much his comeback film, because he apparently had to plead with Harry Cohn, the head of Columbia, to get the parts. He paid for his own audition. He flew back and paid for his own audition tape. He said, I am Maggio. I understand this character. Montgomery Clift is fantastic in it, and also Burt Lancaster with Deborah Kerr steals the film. The scene I've got, and again at the time it was very shocking, because it's still an unpleasant word for somebody of Italian heritage, but it shows you how raw it is. Ernest Borgnine giving great baddie in this one as this hideous sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Frank Sinatra and you've got Burt Lancaster in, for me, one of the ultimate barroom fight scenes.
You hit me. Yeah, and I'm about to do it again, too.
Boy, you dirty wop.
If you all want to fight, take it outside.
I'm gonna cut this wop's heart out. Anybody steps in here, I give it to him first.
One step further, Fatso, and I'm gonna debrain you.
Nobody's gonna do nothing. Anybody does any killing around here, I'll do it.
This is a private affair, Warden.
No, it ain't. This man's in my company. And you ain't making 2 extra weeks paperwork for me for nothing.
Out for blood, huh? You'd puke your guts out at the sight of a dead man.
Put down that stool. Put it down. Drop that knife. Okay, Fatso. If it's killing you want, come on. Well, come on.
It is a great film for me. I mean, they remade it, or did a TV film version of it, which wasn't as good, I think, in the 1980s. But again, it's black and white, folks, so get ready for that. But I think maybe these days some of Fred Zinnemann films who direct it look a bit dated. I still love the event. Do you like this as a war film?
I think it's a great movie. You and I talked recently about On the Waterfront with Brando, and I think this has a sort of On the Waterfront meets Officer and a Gentleman meets Pearl Harbor kind of a mashup thing going on, but long obviously before the fact. Great movie, great cast. Deborah Kerr and Burt Lancaster, that's sizzling, if you know what I mean. And
what's great about it is when it was released, Pearl Harbor had only been, 11, 12 years before, so it was a very contemporary film for that. So I'm going to go. That's Saturday, tomorrow, 6:40, Sony Movies Classic. And then I'm to ITV2 for Sunday. This is a bit of fun, a bit of fluff. There may be a sequel on the way starring LeBron James. But let's go back to 1994. And, well, see, Michael Jordan, who's the man of the moment with the last starts, basketball king, legend, he took a couple of years out between 1993 and 1995. And this film, Space Jam, attempts to explain what happened to him. In the shell of a nut, he was kidnapped by Bugs Bunny to play basketball, to keep the little toon characters from Warner Brothers free from being enslaved in a theme park. They're playing the Nerdlucks. The evil baddie is Mr. Swackhammer. Let's have the trailer. Bill Murray's in this as well, and Danny DeVito does a voice. It's a cracker. It's Space Jam. Here's the trailer.
When the world's greatest athlete, Michael Jordan, teams up with the world's best-loved cartoon character, Bugs Bunny, you won't believe your eyes.
Pardon me, Mr. Jordan. Could I have your John Hancock?
What's going on here?
We need your help!
You heard of the Dream Team? Well, we're the Mean Team.
Ready?
Yeah!
Now, this cost, I think, $80 million, but it made $250 million at the time, and it's still earning money, and it's great kind of fluffy fun. And it's the first time, actually, I must confess, I was aware of Michael Jordan, because we're not huge basketball fans, most of us in this country. So it's a goodie, Sunday afternoon, 1:20, and it's Space Jam. What have you got for us? You've got a bit of straight from a comic book, Korean-type horror science fiction. Well, not Korean, but by a Korean director.
I mean, I'm going to say that Space Jam, apparently, its franchise to date has earned $6 billion, apparently.
Woo!
I wish, believe me, I wish that the film I'm about to talk about had made anywhere near that, because I think it deserves it. Is, of course, Snowpiercer, which you and I having done Oscar night together this year, you've heard me mention more than a few times, because it's directed and written by Bong Joon-ho, who, of course, won Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay and everything this year for Parasite. Snowpiercer is an adaptation of a French comic book novel called L'Aspiazency. Do you know, I'm terrible at pronouncing it. It's basically a dystopian sci-fi tale of Orwellian class set on a train powered by a perpetual motion engine. So it circles the entire globe once per year, and this happens after the end of the climate apocalypse, when the Earth is uninhabitable and the poor people live in the back of the train and the rich people live in the front, and the poor people stage a revolution to fight their way to the front of the train. And the reason we're talking about this film now is because on Monday it finally gets its first ever UK DVD release, the same day that its TV adaptation lands on Netflix for the very first time. And the reason that happened is entirely because of Harvey Weinstein. But I've got a clip for you of Tilda Swinton chewing some scenery as basically sci-fi Margaret Thatcher.
Okay, it's film 4, it's 9 o'clock, it's Sunday night, it's Snowpiercer. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride.
As in the beginning, I belong to the front. You belong to the tail. When the foot seeks the place of the head, a sacred line is crossed. Know your place. Keep your place. Be a shoe.
I mean, it's a strange film, this, and it's very much... I mean, I've watched it a couple of times, and I'm always intrigued by it. I don't know if it works entirely for me, but it is absolutely astonishingly beautiful to look at. And there are a couple of very grim moments in this, aren't there, when you learn how this train is kept going. I mean, some of it is quite... It's almost like it reminded me of a kind of steampunk, like a Charles Dickens science fiction novel, because that's the horrible sense of the Victorian underclass in these poor working class people at the very back of the train being fed effectively grey sludge to keep them alive.
There is that element to it. One of the things you notice in it as well, I mean, there's a character that's been sort of invented for this version, and when you see the TV adaptation, I watched the first episode this past week, when you see the TV adaptation, which is a little bit closer to the comic, you realise that character was invented for the movie, but the John Hurt character's name is Gilliam, and you suddenly become very aware of how rooted in Terry Gilliam movies like 12 Monkeys, like Brazil, like things like that, this movie really is. It's a very twisted, very disturbed interpretation. The comic is very, very dark, but in Bong Joon-ho's hands, it becomes even more pointed. And when you've seen something like Parasite as well as recently as we have, that's not terribly surprising. But the cast he's got for this and the darkness to which that script goes, and there's a monologue, for instance, with Chris Evans in this, because, you know, a hell of a cast this was. Chris Evans, John Hurt,
Ed Harris, who I always love seeing on the big screen. Ed Harris is in it. Jamie Bell's in it as well. So it's Sunday night. It's Film 4. It's Snowpiercer. It's serious. It's well worth a look. It's kind of odd that it's on the telly just before it's on DVD. That's going to hit the sands a bit, isn't it, I thought? It's a bit of a strange miscalculation.
I'm not even going to vaguely complain, Paul, because I spent 7 years telling everyone who listened, watch Snowpiercer, this guy might be big one day. And then, you know, you and I had Oscar night this year. We saw how that went.
It's also, I think, at $40 million, the most expensive Korean production ever. Some great movie recommendations for you there. And remind people where we can hear you and our Monday regular, the fantastic Rebecca Perfect, and your cinematic musings and recommendations. Where's your podcast, Van?
You can find us on all podcast platforms every Friday morning. We have new episodes go live at 6 a.m. and it's off screen. It's the ultimate 7-day movie guide. Everything you can get on digital, on DVD, on streaming, and on Freeview. Every platform you want for the following 7 days.
Brilliant stuff, Van Connor there. That's a wrap. Save